Where do you see leaders are failing to run this alignment to keep staff engaged and track it properly? Where is the failure happening?
Stop handing off your digital strategy to the IT department. If you are in the boardroom, you own the North Star. In this episode, Germain St-Denis, the architect of People First Framework, author of Empowering People Through Caring Leadership, and a veteran leadership strategist, joins us to break down the why and how of digital ownership at executive level. We are talking strategy, accountability, and the transformation of the modern leader. This is digital leadership in the boardroom. If you are sitting in the boardroom, C suite, or working directly with the C suite, this conversation is for you for the second time on the show. Let's welcome Germain Saint Denis.
Hey, Jermaine, welcome.
Alright.
Welcome
Thank you.
back.
Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. It's always good to talk to you about leadership, alignment, and company's culture. And it's great. We have had a previous conversation, which was wonderful. Let's dive into the digital initiatives and the realistic business outcomes alignment. Okay. And that's where our conversation today is focused around. Where do you see leaderships are failing, the leaders and top executives are failing to tie digital investments or digital initiatives with real business goals that influences the top line?
I think that's a really, really key question. And every organization, I'm sure, faces that. I think too often what happens is that um, strategies are done in the boardroom, which is great, right? And they're done at a high level. Um, when it comes down to the execution, to get the outcomes that you want, it's really, really key that the execution is done in a way
Yes.
that aligns with the maturity of the leadership to beat that, the maturity of the people and the tools, so that you really get the outcomes. So it's a question of, I think, of alignment, where you want to take your organization with these initiatives and how realistic are your objectives or your set outcomes. They may not be realistic if you just can't get there.
So do you see like it's like a anchoring issue? So every initiative and every decision made should be reviewed up front. Okay, what's going to influence down the line? Otherwise, if it is just a decision and a strategy, and then we'll see what happens next, then it's not going to bring any value.
It's an anchoring issue, but the leadership is the anchor. Even when you move from strategy to execution, the leadership team remains the anchor. And leadership behavior and how they get involved in helping the execution, helping the people execute, that's a big, big factor. So leadership behavior, you can't just step away and say, okay, now make it happen. And I've seen this many, many times. There's another step now. If you would go back just a touch, the leadership team discusses initiatives for months, maybe a year before they decide, okay, let's go ahead and do this part, right? Then what do? Suddenly, the leadership team now says, okay, let's send out a memo or an email, or let's have a town hall meeting, or let's have some discussion. Now we got to get our people on board. But since they've been discussing it for a long time, it's all new to the people. So they've got a factory, and there's a period there where they really, really need to stay close and make sure that their strategy is well understood by everyone. Otherwise, it's just not going to get there.
So to your point, like there is a contextual communication missing in this case because like sometimes what happens is like when I'm talking to my kids, like they come back with just like the final phrase of what is going on there in their mind and ask things. Okay. But like in order to make that choice correctly, I ask a lot of questions. Okay, why you want it? Why you think it? I mean, so in order to avoid these kind of passive questions in the staff or employees, leadership has to come up with context and the value it's going to bring. So I also talk a lot about digital maturity these in this time because like digital transformation has been there for a couple of decades and everything is already transformed. So the real question really today is, are we transforming or what are we improving? So, so transformation happened already. It's all about like the maturity level on the on that transformation roadmap. Okay, where you stand on the transformation. So, investments today, what I'm also hearing from you is more based on anchoring and alignment and transparency and visibility to staff. If there is a decision and strategy being implemented, why it is important, what value it's going to bring in, where is growth assigned and attached to everybody in the organization.
Yes, exactly. Why is it important, and why is it important to them, to the whole organization or the whole team that's going to be impacted? Why is it important for them to understand the why and what is their contribution? I often use this example. If you look at automotive assembly line and somebody is installing wheels, so okay, if some person is
Yeah,
installing wheels. Johnny Cash has a song says installing wheels on Cadillacs. If you think about it, that person is not installing wheels. That person is helping build a car, a vehicle to the exact spec that a dealer wrote for a specific client. So it's an important contribution. So it doesn't matter which part you're doing, your contribution is important, but a lot of employees don't know how their contribution really relates to the organization's goals and objectives set at the leadership team. So that alignment is absolutely, absolutely critical.
your example is spot on because that mechanic or an engineer is making car not for the dealer but for the customer. Okay, so his work is going to influence customer experience.
Absolutely. And what we've done today, I mean, the initial transformations, a lot of them were mostly internally focused. But now, obviously, everything touches the customer, and the customer experience is so key to me.
Yeah,
And a lot of times, the customer experience is poor, even though the service or the product may be great.
exactly.
But if it's difficult for a customer to use, or if it's difficult for an employee to help the customer because they don't really know, that doesn't help you either, right? I can go back a few years. I was helping an organization. They transformed to a different business model, and they they um, they had a lot of turnover. So they wanted to minimize turnover, so they kind of changed their approach to assigning people and workload. But what happened was that the way that the implementation was done and the execution is that they were turned over to clients before it was actually complete and before the people out in the field were trained enough and experienced enough to help the customers. So I've coined this phrase, and you have read my book, but, and it still applies today, even in the age of AI. It goes something like this: the degree of success of any transformation or technology initiative is directly related to the amount of effort directed towards the people who are going to adopt.
That's true. That is right. And what do you think, like how initiatives should be prioritized for staff or the real outcome?
Well, I think the first thing is since the leadership team has been working on these for quite a period ahead of time, when they introduce these things to the um, employees who are going to be impacted, uh, they should have some sessions to really get some input because there may be things that they, although they think strategically make a lot of sense, it may not quite be the way it works in the field. And the field may have some really good suggestions to say, hey, instead of wanting to do that, why don't we do it this way, right? The guy installing the wheels on the car has a much better idea than the designer in the first place who designed the car. There's a better process out on the assembly line. And so that's where sometimes there's a disconnect. So to make it better, make sure that not only people know what you want done, they have a say, possibly, or at least some idea of how it might be done better or how it might be done in a way that will ensure more adoption.
That resonates your theory also. I'll quote your bio here, Jermaine. Like you mentioned, engagement is low, burnout is high, trust is fragile. And if leaders are not prioritizing or aligning with company strengths and opportunities outside, well, of course, uh, there's going to be lower engagement within the staff itself, and if they're not motivated enough to influence the outcome or the work they are doing, it's going to burn out the culture internally also. And of course, like, if this lack of engagement will also bring in trust issues within the organization, which is like all negative signs in any company's growth. Yeah, yeah, this is very true. So listening voice of employees, assessing strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats within the organization and outside in the market, and then prioritize accordingly and invest wisely there.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And that's the best approach, um, and it has been for quite some time. Even though the tech sector is a fairly young industry, if you will, we are digitally much more mature than we were. But as you know now, the things AI has really taken off, and things are moving much faster. People only have so much capacity, I think, to change at one time or to adapt at one time. So the other thing to factor in, I think, is kind of goes back to what you said. I talk about it in my profile, but low engagement, those kinds of things. My feeling is you can't lead change effectively if you can't lead people effectively,
Oh yeah,
and
that's true.
those are key, right? That is absolutely key. So you can be the best to drive the process of change, fine, and all the right tools and everything else, but you've got to lead the people. If you don't lead the people along, that's where you have the problem.
Yeah, that's right. And where do you see leaders are failing to staff engaged and track it properly? Where is the failure happening? The top maybe 4 or 5 points.
I think that the top failure is that people don't recognize they put bottom line they put the bottom line as a main priority without really recognizing that doesn't matter how good your products are, if the people behind it, obviously helping customers, if the people behind it are not either trained or engaged or motivated, you're not going to do as well. So you've got to be able to say that my key asset are my people. First thing they have to do is establish trust and what I call establish the human connection. And you can do that even though you have a large team. You don't have to get to know them all one by one, but every leadership level should get to know their people one by one. So if you're a leader of leaders, you get to know your leaders, and that works its way down, cascades down. But the only way I think to get higher engagement and reduce burnout, have high loyalty. I mean, in the past, uh, I've been in leadership roles for more than 30 years, and my executives have always said I've had the lowest attrition of any team. Right? People
Okay.
didn't leave; they wanted to join, and
Yeah.
that's great. And I attribute it to them because they understood what needed to be done, and they were all accountable and very responsible. And when the leaders can indicate that they care for their people, the people will then respond positively. I think you just have to no, just indicate you care for them, you care for their well-being. You know, but if you have a lot of turnover, there's something wrong, and you're pushing your people too
Yes.
hard, right? Or else your hiring strategy may not be good, but that's not normally the case. Normally, the case is if you have a lot of high turnover, you're pushing your people too hard, or you're doing something that's just not quite right.
Yeah. Employee experience is as same important as the customer experience.
Some people claim it's more important because if your employees aren't in the right, don't have the right mindset and the right approach, or they talk to clients, or even when they work internally, it will reflect on your clients and reflect poorly. And
Another area I also find is like there is an education gap and alignment gap between leaders and technology, because most of leaders in large organizations are not from technical background. Some are marketing experts, some are strategy experts, some are, of course, there are data experts as well, and not everyone has to be like expert in the most technologies. But again, for today's world, when technology is shifting so fast, Okay, industry changes. Even engineers at the floor level are always chasing to keep up with the knowledge, and like every 6 months, look at what's happening with AI. Okay, I mean, you implement something and it's already old in 6 months. Leaders on the top are not as fast enough as to keep up with all that knowledge, and like there are a lot of unknowns in the area, and strategies built based on information may be obsolete already. Any suggestion like how to keep up with those new trends and best practices that are always changing, always evolving, or what is the alternate way to keep the strategy and outcomes aligned? Because strategy implementation takes time, and by the time there is time to measure the results, technology is already obsolete, strategy might no longer relevant as well. So
Mhm.
what do you think, like is that some experience that you have also seen, or like how do you suggest to overcome these kind of situations?
I have seen that actually. That there's multiple parts to what you talked about there, and to that question. And the number one is okay. Everything had changes very rapidly. Leaders don't have to have the expertise or even understand in detail what technology can do, but I think learning
Yeah,
is a lifelong journey for
yeah,
everybody. Leaders have a responsibility, and they owe it to themselves to at least understand what that technology can do, right? And they could have, experts on their teams to help them with that. And they don't want to learn that's a problem, in my opinion. They have to want to
yes,
learn, and they have to realize they need to get help. Um, Now they can get help understanding what technology can do for their organization, but you can't really delegate the responsibility that comes with asking your wanting to go from strategy to execution. That part has to really come from the leadership. Even if you hire the best change leadership consultant, um, giving that person the authority is not at all the same, and it won't be seen the same by the people. So the leadership team have to know enough and to follow enough. And I think many leaders are trying to do that to a certain degree, and many of them are succeeding. In the past, some leaders wouldn't even touch a computer. If I go back quite a few years ago, and today everybody is on their phone. People are following everything. I exchange information sometimes, but late boomers send me information about some technology development that the person found interesting, knowing that I would find it interesting, right? Even though I worked in the tech sector all of my life, even if they're not in the tech sector, even if they lead a financial organization or anything else, there's always a certain amount of technology, and I think everybody's used to that. So, as a leadership team, there's got to be enough understanding. And the last part of your question, um, that's probably the trickiest one because there again, it goes back to how everything resonates with the people in the
yeah.
end, right? And that's why I always say put people first in everything you want to do because unless you keep your people in mind, that's where you're gonna have the misstep at the end.
Yeah, according to a study also, like most CEOs today are living under imposter syndrome. There is a huge pressure to deliver results, and they're not very confident how to get that. And there is a fear factor involved in order to like keep working. So that's probably another reason that in that rush or FOMO situation, bad decisions are being made, non-calculated risks are being taken, right? So which is causing some of those failures as well. I mean, there is another study that says like 85% of AI initiatives are failing, and the reason is not just technology, heavily are failing from the leadership failures.
Yeah, that's a big risk.
Yeah, and I see it as like again like four main reasons behind all that, which I call fear factor, which is acronym like F as in like FOMO, okay, E as an education gap, A as an alignment gap, R roadmap is missing. So these four elements, which I come across as a common pattern, like why those initiatives are failing.
I would add a second R and say, well, your resources, but That is a really good acronym. And yes, there is imposter syndrome. It increases the risk, and so that maybe goes back then to a governance issue, right?
Oh,
When you go
yes.
forward, you want to go forward your strategy, you should set up a governance so that you really keep track and know what's going on and can tell, can we be confident in this leader to get this done, right? And all of the other leaders behind to get this done the way we expect it so that we can get our outcomes. So that's a governance issue.
So, what is your top suggestion you want to give to our audience leaders today?
Oh, I think leaders today, first of all, um, as you develop your strategies, keep your people informed sooner than you might want to, even though you may get too many questions, but keep your people informed because in the end, it will pay off to a large degree. Secondly, align your expectations and your outcomes with your organization's ability and capacity, quote, maturity overall to get there, right? Um,
Hey.
and be realistic how well all of this is going to work. So clearly, alignment, I think, is a key one. Communication with your people. And again, this is the same as before, but you're establishing trust. If you put your people first, just think for a minute. We're about to do this. What's going to be the impact on the organization? Those would be my key takeaways. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you, Germain. Thank you for your insights today. Really wonderful to have this conversation with you.
thank you, Don. I really appreciate it. It's great discovery.
And that's a wrap on this episode. We hope you are walking away with at least one battle tested strategy you can apply to your own digital journey today. This show is built for leaders like you who are tired of the fluff and ready for real solutions. If you found value in this discussion today, please subscribe to the channel and leave us a review. It helps us bring more world-class leaders to the table. Also, feel free to share this episode with a colleague who is navigating these same digital trenches. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.